Hello there, and welcome to Mysteries of Earth. Imagine looking at Earth from far above. The blue oceans swirling like liquid glass, mountains rising like ancient guardians, and cities glittering at night like constellations brought down to the ground. A beautiful world, yes, but also a strange one. For all its beauty, life here is fragile, unpredictable, and full of trials. So here's the question. What if Earth isn't just a planet? What if it's a test? A test of what? Of survival, of morality, of intelligence, or perhaps something we can't yet define. Every culture, every civilization, every generation has wrestled with this idea in one form or another. That life is not random, but measured. That unseen eyes might be watching, not to punish, not to reward, but simply to see what choices we make. Pause for a moment. Think of your own life. The struggles, the triumphs, the small decisions you make when nobody else is around. What if those moments are not accidents of chance, but questions on an exam you never realized you were taking? The mystery deepens when you notice the patterns. Humanity rises and falls in cycles. Civilizations build monuments, then vanish. Species dominate, then disappear, and still the planet resets itself, as if moving to the next question on a test we don't understand. But if there is a test, who or what is testing us? Some imagine watchers. Not gods, not aliens, not ancestors, but something else entirely. Perhaps entities so advanced we could never comprehend them. Or perhaps a system built into reality itself, where every choice creates ripples that measure who we are. Think of the hidden patterns in nature, the Fibonacci spiral in seashells, the symmetry of snowflakes, the uncanny precision of the Earth's orbit, tilted just enough to create seasons, balanced just enough to allow life. Coincidence, or deliberate design. It almost feels as if the world has been set up to challenge us. Natural disasters test our resilience. Scarcity tests our cooperation. Power tests our morality. And time itself tests whether anything we build can endure. Some might say, life is just randomness, guided by evolution and chance. But if that's true, why does life so often feel like it has weight? Why do our choices feel like they matter, even when no one else sees them? Could it be that this feeling, this sense that life carries meaning, is the very first sign of the test? That awareness itself is the opening question? And if so, how do we answer it? For thousands of years, humanity has built myths, philosophies, and sciences to explain why we are here. Some say it's survival. Some say it's morality. Others whisper that it's a simulation, that we are inside an elaborate program, run not for entertainment, but for measurement. But maybe the truth is simpler. Maybe the test isn't about grand discoveries or about leaving monuments behind. Maybe it's about how we move through the quiet moments of life, how we treat one another, how we respond to fear, to hardship, to uncertainty. The watchers, if they exist, may not be counting our victories in war, our towers of steel, or our wealth. They may be watching something much smaller, something hidden in plain sight. Because every decision leaves a trace. Every choice becomes a thread in the vast web of history. And the web never forgets. So we are left with the hidden question. A question older than science, older than myth, older than language itself. Is Earth a random accident, or is it the stage for something far greater? If it is a stage, then we are all actors in a performance we do not fully understand. The spotlight is on us. The audience remains unseen. The script is unfinished. And the test continues. So ask yourself, what if every step you take is part of an answer? What if every moment is part of a question? What if this, right now, is the hidden exam? And if that's true, then the real mystery is not whether Earth is a test, but how you will choose to play your part in it. When we peer into the ruins of the past, we don't just find stones and broken walls. We find ideas, echoes of beliefs that once defined entire civilizations. And again, one theme whispers through time. Life is a trial. From the deserts of Mesopotamia to the temples of ancient Egypt, from the mountains of Greece to the river valleys of India and China, humans have carried a haunting intuition that existence itself is being measured. But where did this idea come from? Imagine standing among the ziggurats of Sumer more than 4,000 years ago. Priests climb steps toward the heavens, carrying offerings to unseen powers. To them, floods, storms, and droughts weren't random events. They were tests of devotion, trials from forces greater than themselves. Pass the test, and the crops flourish. Fail, and famine swallows the land. The Egyptians carried this belief into eternity. In their vision of the afterlife, every soul would face the weighing of the heart. Imagine the scene: a vast hall, a scale balanced against the feather of truth. If your heart was heavy with dishonesty or cruelty, you failed the trial, devoured by a monster, erased from memory. If it was light, you advanced into eternal fields of peace. Was this myth, or an ancient warning that every action was being recorded? Across the Mediterranean, the Greeks wrestled with their own trials. In their tragedies and epics, heroes faced impossible challenges, not just battles of strength, but moral choices. Would they show mercy? Would they resist temptation? Their philosophers debated whether virtue itself was life's ultimate examination. Socrates once suggested that the unexamined life was not worth living, almost as if awareness was the first step to passing the test. Further east, the echoes grew louder. In India, the idea of karma arose. Every action, great or small, planting seeds for future consequences. See, existence wasn't a single test, but a series of trials stretching across lifetimes. In China, Confucian thought placed emphasis on duty, honor, and harmony, as if society itself was a classroom where each role was an assignment to complete. Even in the distant Americas, the Maya and Aztecs saw life as a cycle of challenges. Their rituals were not only offerings to the gods, but demonstrations of endurance, faith, and sacrifice. To them, existence was fragile, sustained only if humanity played its part in a larger cosmic order. Different lands, different languages, different rituals, yet the same question pulsed beneath them all. Are we being judged? But why? Why would so many unrelated cultures, scattered across time and space, converge on the same haunting idea? Some historians argue it was survival itself that planted this seed. Early humans lived on the edge of existence. A failed hunt, a poor harvest, a raging storm. Any mistake could mean death. Perhaps they began to see the world as an exam, where every choice determined whether they advanced or perished. Others believe it was about accountability. By imagining that unseen eyes were watching, societies could enforce morality, order, and trust. A villager might steal if he thought no one would notice. But what if the universe itself was keeping score? What if even his hidden actions echoed into eternity? And so rituals were born. Codes of law were written. Moral systems flourished. They weren't just rules for living, they were answers to the hidden question, what is required to pass the test of life? Yet, as centuries passed, something strange happened. Civilizations fell, but their whispers endured. The ruins may have crumbled, but the echoes of their philosophies survived, carried forward into new cultures and new languages. It's as if humanity, across all ages, has been trying to remind itself. Life is not meaningless. Choices matter. Every action is part of something greater. And here we are, thousands of years later, still asking the same questions. Was it simply fear that drove the ancients to see trials everywhere? Or did they glimpse something we've forgotten? Perhaps their myths weren't fantasies, but metaphors for a deeper truth, that the world itself is structured like a test, designed to reveal who we really are. The ancients are gone. Their temples lie silent, their rituals faded, but the echoes remain, carried across generations, whispering the same haunting reminder, your life is being measured. The question is, by what? And for what? When you step back and look at Earth, not just as a home, but as a stage, something strange begins to appear. Against the backdrop of a cold, indifferent universe, our planet seems impossibly balanced. Almost as if it were tuned, not by chance, but by design. Think about it. The Earth orbits the Sun at just the right distance. A little closer and oceans would boil away. A little farther and they would freeze into lifeless ice. The tilt of our axis, the speed of our rotation, the invisible shield of our magnetic field, every detail is aligned with uncanny precision. Too many variables, too perfectly balanced for comfort. It's what scientists sometimes call the Goldilocks zone. Not too hot, not too cold, but just right. But how just right is it really? Our moon, for example, is far larger than most moons compared to their planets. Without it, Earth's wobble would be chaotic. Seasons would spiral out of control. Life as we know it might never have formed. Was it luck or part of the setup? This is where the anthropic principle enters. It's a puzzling, almost unsettling idea. It suggests the universe looks designed for us because, if it weren't, we wouldn't be here to ask the question. In other words, the very fact that we exist means we must live in a universe capable of supporting us. But does that explanation satisfy you? Or does it sound like an answer hiding a deeper truth? Imagine a stage play. Every prop, every spotlight, every piece of scenery carefully arranged for a performance. The actors may not know who wrote the script, but they know the play feels deliberate. Could Earth be like that? A cosmic theater, set with conditions so specific that life was almost inevitable. The more we look, the stranger it gets. The ratio of elements in our atmosphere, the presence of liquid water, the delicate balance of gravity and energy that holds galaxies together. Look at the story of Earth's past. This planet has not been gentle. Asteroids, ice ages, volcanic winters, mass extinctions, again and again, life has been pushed to the edge. And yet it continues. From single-celled organisms clinging to volcanic vents to the rise of humans who now study the stars, life has refused to bow, almost as if resilience is the real test. Could it be that survival is not just about persistence, but adaptation? Each trial sharpening the blade, each catastrophe shaping intelligence, cooperation, and awareness. If so, then Earth's perfect balance isn't about comfort. It's about challenge. The stage isn't safe. It's designed to provoke growth. And here's the haunting part. If Earth is a test, then maybe the universe itself is the examiner. Every choice we make, how we use resources, how we treat each other, how we face disaster, feeds into the ultimate question. Can intelligent life not just survive, but deserve to? When we gaze at the stars, it's easy to feel small. But perhaps that's the point. The universe is vast, silent and cold, but in one thin band around one modest star, life blooms. Against impossible odds, here we are, actors on a stage we didn't build, following lines we don't fully understand, under lights we didn't switch on. So the question remains, Is this balance coincidence or calculation? Are we lucky travelers on a fortunate planet, or participants in something larger, something hidden, something designed to see if we can endure not just as individuals, but as a species? If Earth truly is a stage, then the script has never been gentle. From the very beginning, life has been thrown into trials of unimaginable scale, tests written not in ink, but in fire, ice, and stone. Consider this. More than 99% of all species that ever lived are gone. Extinct, erased. Their stories written in fossils. Their names unknown to us. Why would nature design a world so ruthless, unless the very act of surviving was part of the examination? Take the great extinctions. The Permian extinction, often called the Great Dying. Nearly every living thing on Earth vanished. Oceans turned toxic, skies choked with ash. Yet, in the aftermath, new life emerged, tougher, more adaptable, ready to claim the world. Then came the Cretaceous extinction, when a mountain-sized asteroid slammed into the planet. Dinosaurs who had ruled for millions of years were wiped away in an instant. But from the shadows, tiny mammals, creatures once overlooked, survived. And from them, much later, came us. If this was chance, it was brutal. If it was a test, it was merciless. But extinction isn't the only trial. Nature constantly sharpens life through disaster. Volcanoes reshaping landscapes overnight. Earthquakes splitting the ground beneath civilizations. Tsunamis swallowing entire coasts. Ice ages locking the planet in frozen silence for tens of thousands of years. Each time, life is forced to adapt or vanish. And then there's evolution itself. Trial and error, written into the DNA of every living being. Traits are tested, generation after generation. Some succeed, some fail. Wings, eyes, camouflage, intelligence, each one forged in the crucible of survival. It's as if nature is constantly asking, what works? What endures? For humanity, these trials never stopped. Our ancestors walked through ice and fire, famine and flood. They faced predators larger, stronger, faster. They survived to droughts that lasted decades. They endured plagues that emptied entire cities. Each disaster carved us into something new. Each catastrophe demanded more than instinct. It demanded ingenuity. Think of early humans, huddled around fire in the frozen dark. Think of the moment stone tools were first struck from flint, or when shelters of bone and hide stood against the wind. Every step forward was not just survival. It was a response to nature's test. And even in recorded history, the trials continued. The eruption of Mount Vesuvius burying Pompeii, the Black Death sweeping across Europe, killing millions yet teaching humanity about resilience, medicine, and adaptation. Earthquakes leveling great cities, only for them to be rebuilt, stronger than before. The pattern is clear. Life is tested. Humanity is tested. Again and again, the world asks, can you survive this? Can you rise from the ruins stronger than before? But here's the haunting thought. Maybe survival alone isn't the real measure. Maybe the test is about how we survive. Do we learn? Do we cooperate? In this light, every natural catastrophe becomes more than destruction. It becomes a question asked not just to individuals, but to civilizations. Can we endure scarcity without collapsing into chaos? Can we rebuild after disaster with greater vision? Can we use knowledge, not just instinct, to prepare for the next trial? History suggests we can. Humanity's greatest leaps often come after catastrophe. Fire forced us to master tools. Famine pushed us toward agriculture. Harsh climates drove us to create clothing, shelter, and trade. Even space exploration, in many ways, was born from global conflict, a survival race elevated into the stars. So perhaps the story of life on Earth isn't one of endless suffering, but of endless testing, and with each test, a chance to grow. Yet, if this is true, one chilling question lingers. Are the tests getting harder? Natural disasters remain, but now humanity has added new trials of its own making. Climate change, nuclear weapons, pandemics born of global movement. Are these the final exams, the ultimate questions that will decide whether we rise beyond or fall like so many species before us? The fossil record shows us what happens when life fails the test. Entire branches of evolution cut off, whole worlds lost forever. And yet here we stand, alive, aware, asking the question no dinosaur ever asked. What is the meaning of the test itself? Perhaps survival isn't the end goal at all. Perhaps survival is only the prerequisite, the first question on a test we are only beginning to understand. Because if life is forged in trials, then the real challenge is not simply to endure them, but to learn what they are trying to teach us. Among all the questions whispered by Earth's trials, one lingers like a shadow we can't escape. Are our choices truly our own? Or are we, like actors on a stage, following lines written long before we were born? This is the puzzle at the heart of humanity: free will versus destiny. Every day, we make decisions: what to eat, where to go, who to trust, whether to speak or stay silent. They feel like choices, but are they? Are we shaping our paths freely? Or are unseen forces guiding us toward outcomes we cannot avoid? Think about the moments that defined your life. The friend you happened to meet, the accident that changed your direction, the chance decision that altered everything after. Was it coincidence or something arranged? Some philosophers argue that our lives are shaped by an intricate web of cause and effect. Your choices today are influenced by your upbringing, your culture, your biology. Even the neurons firing in your brain obey the laws of physics. If that's true, how free are we really? And yet, we feel the weight of decision. We hesitate, we reflect, we choose. If we were only puppets of destiny, why would choice feel so real? Unless, perhaps that's part of the test. Imagine Earth not as a stage, but as a classroom. The exam isn't about survival alone. It's about character. The questions aren't written in textbooks, but in moments of pressure, fear, and temptation. Will you choose kindness when anger feels easier? Will you act with courage when fear whispers in your ear? Will you stand for truth when silence would protect you? Maybe these are the hidden exam questions, not the disasters, not the catastrophes, but the quiet decisions that shape the person you become. History gives us endless examples. In times of war, some chose cruelty, others chose compassion. In times of oppression, some chose silence, others chose resistance. If life is a test, then perhaps every generation faces the same riddle. When pushed to the edge, who will rise with integrity, and who will fall into selfishness? But here's the twist. What if both free will and destiny are true at the same time? Imagine a maze. The walls are already built. The structure exists. That is destiny. But within the maze, you choose your path, your turns, your pace. That is free will. In this view, life's test is not about escaping the maze, but about how you move through it. And maybe the scorecard isn't written in grand achievements. Maybe it's written in the ordinary. The small kindnesses, the overlooked mercies, the quiet acts of honesty. These are the decisions most people never notice. But if someone, somewhere, is keeping track, perhaps those are the marks that matter most. Think about it. A stranger drops something on the street. Do you return it? No one would know if you didn't. But you would. A friend is in pain. Do you take the time to listen, even when you're tired? A moment of temptation appears. Cheating, lying, betraying trust. Do you resist or do you give in? Each of these is a question. Each of these could be an answer. Some might call it conscience. Others call it morality. But if this world is a test, then conscience may be the exam paper we carry inside us, reminding us, nudging us, asking quietly, what kind of person are you becoming? And yet, the puzzle deepens. If kindness, courage, and integrity are the true exam questions, why are they so difficult? Why is it easier to lie than tell the truth? Easier to hate than forgive? Easier to stay silent than speak? Perhaps because the test would be meaningless if the answers were easy. The ancients hinted at this, from the weighing of the heart in Egypt, to the karmic cycle in India, to the philosophies of Greece and China, all pointed to the same truth, that the quality of our character might matter more than our survival. So, what is humanity's role in this grand puzzle? Are we free spirits, carving paths with our own will? Or we subjects in a carefully crafted trial, where destiny sets the stage and our moral choices write the script? Maybe the answer lies not in choosing between free will and destiny, but in understanding that both exist. The maze is built, the stage is set, but within it, every choice is still ours to make. And if there is a scorecard, hidden, quiet, invisible, perhaps it isn't tallying wealth, power, or fame. Perhaps it's recording something far simpler, who you were when it mattered most. In the end, the puzzle remains unsolved, but maybe that's the point. The test is not about knowing the rules. It's about living as though your choices matter, even if you'll never see the final grade. Because maybe, just maybe, that's the real question. What if everything you see, touch, and feel isn't truly real? What if the world around you, trees swaying in the wind, the warmth of sunlight, even the beating of your own heart, is nothing more than code in an elaborate simulation? It sounds like science fiction. Yet, some of the world's greatest thinkers, scientists, philosophers, and even tech visionaries have asked a haunting question. Is Earth itself a programmed environment, designed as a test? This is the simulation hypothesis. Picture it, a vast system, far more advanced than anything humans have ever built. Within this system lies a digital Earth, coded down to the smallest detail, the shimmer of water, the texture of stone, the unpredictability of human emotion. Inside, billions of conscious beings live out their lives, unaware that the walls of their reality are not made of atoms, but of information. But why build such a thing? Why create a simulated world at all? Some say it could be an experiment, an immense laboratory to study life, morality, or civilization itself. Others whisper of something deeper. Perhaps the simulation is a test, and each of us is being measured by how we play our roles. If that's true, then who are the watchers? Are they higher beings, observing us as we struggle and strive? Could they be ancestors, our own future descendants, running simulations of their past to learn from history? Or perhaps the truth is stranger still, entities beyond imagination, whose motives we cannot begin to grasp. Sometimes, the universe itself seems to drop hints. Scientists describe the laws of physics as astonishingly precise, as though written into code. The speed of light, the charge of an electron, the strength of gravity, fixed numbers, constants that never change. But why? Why do the rules of reality look so much like lines of programming? And then there are the glitches. Moments when reality seems to flicker. People describing déjà vu. The uncanny sensation that you've lived a moment before. Strange coincidences that defy probability. Anomalies in physics experiments that hint the fabric of reality isn't as solid as we think. Are these accidents of perception, or tiny cracks in the code, reminding us that the world may not be as real as it feels? Even ancient traditions hinted at this possibility. Hindu philosophy spoke of Maya, the illusion of reality. Plato described the cave, where people mistake shadows on the wall for the truth. Across cultures and centuries, thinkers have suggested the same unsettling idea, that what we perceive is only a layer, a veil, a projection. If the simulation is real, then life takes on a new meaning. The disasters, the struggles, the moral dilemmas, they may all be intentional. Every hardship could be part of the design, testing not just survival, but character. The watchers wouldn't need to intervene directly. The program itself would supply the challenges, pushing us to reveal who we truly are. But this raises another question. What happens when the test is over? In a video game, when the level ends, the player either advances or starts over. Could life be the same? Perhaps death is not an ending, but a transition, logging out of one reality, only to face the judgment of those running it. Did you pass? Did you fail? Or are you sent back in, reset, until the lesson is learned? It's a chilling thought. Yet, it also makes sense of something we all feel, that our actions matter, even when no one is watching. If the watchers exist, then every decision may be recorded. Every moment may count. And what of those moments when people claim to see beyond the ordinary? Visions, near-death experiences, strange encounters that defy explanation. Could these be brief connections to the world outside the simulation? Glimpses of the reality beyond the code? Of course, the skeptic in us resists. Maybe déjà vu is just a brain misfire. Maybe coincidences are just math. Maybe the precision of physics is only natural law. But then again, maybe that's exactly what the code is designed to make us believe. So we return to the question, are we truly free beings in a material world? Or are we subjects inside an immense test, observed by watchers we cannot see? Perhaps both could be true. For even in a simulation, choices still matter. The code might set the boundaries, but within those boundaries, we decide who we become. And if there really are watchers, whether they are gods, ancestors, or unimaginable intelligences, then perhaps the truest test is not about uncovering the simulation, but about proving ourselves within it. Because maybe the point was never to escape the program. Maybe the point was always to see how we play the game. If life is a test, then every test must have an outcome, a result, a final grade. But what does it mean to pass the test of Earth? And what happens if we fail? The idea is both terrifying and strangely comforting. Passing might mean ascension, rising to a higher plane of existence, beyond the limits of flesh and bone. Imagine leaving behind the weight of gravity, the pain of hunger, the boundaries of time. Perhaps those who pass are welcomed into a new dimension, a realm where knowledge and awareness stretch beyond anything the human mind can imagine. Some traditions whisper of an afterlife, where the soul graduates from the classroom of earth into another reality. Others speak of reincarnation, the chance to return, not as punishment, but as a new opportunity to refine, to grow, to learn the lessons we did not fully grasp before. And then there is evolution, not just biological, but spiritual. Humanity may be climbing a ladder we cannot see, each generation rising a little higher. Maybe the test is collective, and passing means unlocking a future where our species transcends its old limitations, becoming something greater, something almost unrecognizable. But if passing is possible, what of failing? Failure could mean oblivion, a candle snuffed out, a game over with no restart. To some, this is the most terrifying possibility, that our struggles, our choices, our very existence could dissolve into nothingness. Yet others imagine failure not as an ending, but as a reset, a cycle repeating until the lesson is finally learned. History itself seems to echo this idea. Civilizations rise, collapse, and begin again. Species emerge, flourish, and vanish, leaving room for new forms of life. Could the same be true for individual souls? If we fail the test, do we return to the beginning, facing the same trials until we finally choose differently? And what if the test is not personal, but planetary? What if Earth itself is under examination? Our survival as a species might be the deciding factor. Do we learn cooperation, compassion, and wisdom in time to prevent our own destruction? Or do we burn out, like so many civilizations before us, leaving the planet to reset, ready to test the next beings who rise from the ashes? The uncertainty lingers like a shadow. We do not know the rules. We do not know the criteria. We do not even know who, if anyone, is marking the scorecard. But maybe that's the point. Tests in life are not always about finding the right answer, but about how we respond to the challenge. When the storm arrives, do we give up or do we endure? When faced with choices that reveal who we are, kindness or cruelty, courage or fear, truth or deceit, do we rise above or do we fall short? Graduation or reset may not be a distant mystical event. It may be happening all the time, in every choice we make. Every decision carries the weight of a possible outcome, each one a small test leading toward a larger result. And yet, another question haunts us. Would we even recognize the moment of graduation if it came? What if ascension isn't a grand ceremony, but a quiet shift of consciousness? What if reincarnation isn't a punishment, but a subtle continuation? What if the so-called end is only a door opening into the next stage of the journey? We are like students sitting in a vast examination hall, unsure of the questions, uncertain of the rules, and unaware of when the test will end. Some will pass, some will reset, and perhaps some will simply fade away. But there is one thread of hope woven into the mystery, the belief that nothing is wasted. Every failure teaches, every cycle refines, every struggle sharpens the soul. So maybe the question is not, will we graduate or reset? But rather, how many times will we face the test until we are ready to ascend? And when that moment comes, when the test is truly complete, what awaits on the other side? A higher plane? A return to the source? Or something beyond imagination, waiting just out of sight? The answer remains hidden, but the possibility itself shapes how we live. Because if Earth is a test, then graduation or reset is not just a mystery of the cosmos. It is the very heartbeat of our existence. Belief is a strange thing. It cannot be touched, weighed, or measured, yet it shapes the course of entire civilizations. The idea that life might be a test has echoed through history, not just as a religious thought, but as a lens through which people understand themselves, their choices, and their place in the universe. What happens when a society accepts, even quietly, that they are being judged? For one, behavior changes. The possibility of a test creates accountability. It transforms everyday actions into moments of consequence. Helping a stranger is no longer just kindness. It becomes a statement of character. Betrayal is no longer just a crime. It becomes a mark on an unseen scorecard. This belief has left deep fingerprints on history. Consider the ancient Egyptians. They believed that after death, the heart of each person would be weighed against the feather of truth. If the heart was heavy with sin, the soul would be devoured. If it was light, the soul would pass into paradise. For centuries, this single idea guided an entire civilization. It shaped laws, inspired monumental tombs, and defined morality itself. Whether or not the weighing of the heart ever truly awaited them, the mere belief was enough to influence every life. Travel east, and we find echoes in China. During the Zhou dynasty, rulers claimed the mandate of heaven. They saw their authority as a test, granted conditionally, and withdrawn if they failed in justice or virtue. When natural disasters struck, people believed it was heaven's signal that the ruler had failed the test. Dynasties rose and fell on this lens of belief, a powerful accountability system that lasted longer than many of the rulers themselves. Even in secular history, the shadow of the test lingers. Consider the concept of honor in ancient Japan. The samurai code of Bushido demanded loyalty, courage, and discipline. Not just, if the rules were written clearly, the game would be too easy. If the outcome were proven beyond doubt, belief would become obedience, not choice. The uncertainty is what makes the test real. The possibility, not the proof, is what changes behavior. Think about it. When you are not sure whether someone is watching, you act differently. You weigh your choices more carefully. You wonder if what you do in the dark will someday be revealed in the light. The test is effective not because we know it exists, but because we suspect it might. This uncertainty has haunted philosophers for centuries. Blaise Pascal, the French thinker, once argued that even if we cannot know for sure whether there is judgment after life, it is safer to live as if there is. Better to act with integrity and discover it didn't matter than to live selfishly and discover it did. Belief in the test is, in this sense, a survival strategy. It keeps societies from unraveling, encourages cooperation, and binds individuals to something larger than themselves. Even when the old temples crumble and the old gods fade, the idea of accountability lingers, an invisible architecture supporting human morality. And so we find ourselves in the present day, surrounded by technology, science, and rationality. Yet the whispers remain. We still ask, am I living well? Do my actions matter? Is someone somewhere keeping score? Whether the test is real or not may be beside the point. What matters is the lens it provides. Through it, we see our choices differently. Through it, we hold ourselves accountable in ways we might not otherwise. Through it, civilizations endure, individuals rise, and humanity continues to seek meaning in the shadows. Perhaps that is the secret power of the test, not in its proof, but in its possibility, not in its certainty, but in its mystery. Because sometimes it is the questions we cannot answer that shape us the most. When we imagine life as a test, our minds often drift toward the grand, the extraordinary. We picture climactic moments, heroic sacrifices, monumental decisions, or earth-shaking discoveries. But what if the true test isn't written in the pages of history, but in the small, almost invisible choices of everyday life? Think about it. What if the questions that matter most are not the ones shouted on the stage of the world, but the ones whispered in silence, moments only you will ever notice? How do you treat the stranger you will never meet again? Do you show kindness, or do you brush past them as if they don't exist? How do you act when no one is watching? Do you cut corners, cheat a little, and justify it because it seems harmless? Or do you hold yourself to the same standard, even when recognition will never come? How do you respond when you fail? Do you crumble, deny responsibility, and place the blame on others? Or do you accept the weight of your mistakes, learn from them, and rise again? These moments are so quiet, so ordinary, that they rarely appear in the stories we tell. Yet they may be the ones that count the most. If there is a hidden scorecard, it is likely written not in bold ink, but in fine, delicate strokes, entries logged in silence. History remembers great leaders, warriors, and thinkers. But what if the test doesn't care about fame? What if it cares about integrity? About whether you kept your word when no one would know if you broke it? About whether you offered kindness when it cost you nothing? About whether you chose honesty, even when the lie would have been easier? Imagine the possibility that every small choice carries weight beyond what you can see, that the test is not in the thrones we sit on, the riches we gather, or the recognition we earn, but in the quiet spaces of daily life. A traveler drops a coin in the street. Do you return it? A traveler drops a coin in the street. Do you return it or pocket it, telling yourself it's too small to matter? A friend is absent when they are most vulnerable. Do you reach out or let the silence remain? The smallest gestures may be invisible to history, but they could be monumental on the hidden scale of the test. Think of failure. Life is full of it. But perhaps the test is not about avoiding failure, it's about what you do after. Do you remain hardened, bitter, and unyielding? Or do you carry the scar as a lesson, softening into empathy for others who stumble too? Maybe resilience itself is one of the questions. And here's the paradox. Quiet moments rarely give you feedback. No voice whispers in your ear, "That was the right choice." No glowing symbol lights up the sky when you've passed. The test unfolds in silence, forcing you to act not because of a guaranteed reward, but because of the kind of person you are becoming. That silence is powerful. It removes the safety net of certainty. It asks you to act in faith, not necessarily religious faith, but faith in yourself, in the idea that even unseen choices matter, that integrity has meaning even when unobserved. Consider how this plays out in communities. Societies that flourish are not built only on laws and leaders. They're built on countless small decisions by ordinary people, neighbors choosing to share food, strangers offering directions, citizens returning lost possessions. These acts may never be recorded, but they ripple outward, creating trust, safety, and resilience. What if that is the real exam? Not how you act on the battlefield or in the palace, but how you act in the kitchen, in the marketplace, in the quiet of your own thoughts. Because if Earth is a test, then the most important questions might be the ones we dismiss as too small to notice. The true scorecard, if it exists, in the end, perhaps the most unsettling truth is this. Maybe the answer is not meant to be known. What if the real mystery of life isn't whether Earth is a test, but that we can never prove it either way? What if the uncertainty is the point? Because think about it. If the test were proven beyond doubt, would it even be a test anymore? If you knew with certainty that every action was being graded, you might act differently, not from genuine integrity, but out of calculation. Every smile, every sacrifice, every gesture of kindness could become a performance. And if you knew with certainty that none of it mattered, that there was no test at all, would it strip away the very motivation to try? Uncertainty forces us into the middle ground, a space where our choices matter because we believe they might. Maybe that's where the true value lies, not in knowing, but in wondering. Every culture, every civilization, every individual has wrestled with this possibility. Maybe the answers differ, but the questions remain, and the questions themselves are powerful. They push us to reflect, to act, to measure ourselves against something greater, even if that something remains hidden in the shadows. So let's return to the personal. You, wherever you are right now, listening to these words. This thought experiment is no longer about ancient myths or cosmic theories. It's about the space you move through every day, the choices you make when no one else is around, the way you respond to pain, to loss, to disappointment. the way you treat those who cannot repay you. These are ripples, small, fragile, but enduring. They shape not only who you are, but what remains after you. Maybe Earth is a stage. Maybe it isn't. Maybe we are being watched, graded, and judged. Or maybe we are simply drifting in a vast, indifferent universe. But does it really matter? Because either way, your choices, there will be no announcement when it's over. No sheet of paper with a grade at the top. No ceremony where your score is revealed. The test ends only when you realize it has, and by then, your answers will already be written. That is the haunting beauty of it. Because whether this world is random or designed, whether our lives are measured or simply lived, you still carry the power of choice. You still leave behind a trail of actions, decisions, and memories. A scorecard written in the hearts of those you touched, in the lives you shaped, in the weight of the legacy you leave behind. And so the question lingers, quiet, unresolved, but impossible to escape. If Earth is a test, how will you choose to answer it?